Hello, everybody. Welcome to the GTPlanet YouTube channel, and welcome to our Not Quite a Podcast video. This is the second one of these that we've done. We're having a monthly roundup on the world of sim racing, motorsport, and having a fantastic chat about it all, and enjoying ourselves, and obviously going through many of the big topics in the world of sim racing and motorsport. My name's Chaz Draycott. I'm delighted to be joined once again by Andrew Evans and Jordan Greer, and we're going to be going through many things today, gentlemen. First off, how have you been? All well?
All good. All good here.
Yeah, it's been busy,
Yeah.
been interesting, been weird, especially in the motorsport world.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a lively month on both fronts, hasn't it, so far? We've got a lot of things to talk about. We've made a list, everybody, of all the topics we wanted to discuss as the month goes on, and it gets longer and longer every single time. And then we get to evenings like this, and we think, goodness me, how are we going to try and fit this all in? But it's better to have more content than not enough, isn't it, gentlemen? One of the first things... What was that, sorry?
Sometimes.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, it's not easy to squish a load of content into a week, even sometimes. Gran Turismo 7 had its second birthday in February, and I mean, quite frankly, it's amazing how quickly that has come around. To be fair, the only thing is they didn't really do a lot for it, did they? You know, we have seen them celebrate many milestones and things in the past, even with just a little hint or just something subtle within the game towards it. There was none of that, was there, at all?
No, I mean, it was strange to kind of see it almost pass by unannounced. I mean, I think the Gran Turismo socials didn't even mark it. But I mean, obviously, last year we saw the PSVR 2 update and the sofa and Grand Valley coming in as part of the first anniversary update. But this year, kind of quiet.
And it seems a shame, doesn't it, Jordan? Because the way that I mean, I think I picked up on it on one of our videos when the last World Tour event was going on. They had like fireworks in the background, and like there was extra lights and color in all the menus, and just a little nod to something like that would have made all the difference, I think.
I know it's so strange. Sometimes they will acknowledge things and not acknowledge these certain anniversaries and go out of their way to do something cool like that. And then these other anniversaries and milestones come and go, and there's just no acknowledgement at all. I don't think they even put anything on social media to recognize the game's second anniversary. But it's a big company, and I think they're going through a lot, which we will get to later. There's a lot going on at Sony, so they probably have other things on their mind right now. But it is a little strange. I thought we'd have some more content. I gotta say, I'm really surprised at how few tracks we have seen for Gran Turismo 7. I think that's I'm more of a track guy than a car guy, really, and I miss the the track creator from Gran Turismo 6, and that was a really cool feature, and I feel like it added so much longevity to the game, and we just really haven't seen that, and I've been really surprised at just how few tracks they've released so far.
Over the last 12 months, I mean, the Grand Valley update was just before the first anniversary, but over the last 12 months, we've had one new track location, which was the ice course at Lake Louise. I mean, there was an update that added two new variations to the Nürburgring, but ultimately we've seen, I think, year one was Watkins Glen, was Grand Valley, Road Atlanta, and then the first track was the additional 24-hour layout of Spa, which nice, but not really a new course. But again, over the last year, we've had Lake Louise and two Nürburgring tracks, and as Jordan said, I think I agree that if you have a game that has 100 tracks and 400 cars, if you add a car, you have 100 more things to do. But if you add a track, you've got 400 more things to do.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Tracks, more tracks, give tracks.
Yeah, and breaking the fourth wall a bit, we all see in the comment sections whenever we put an article out about an update or anything, people want tracks. We can see it as well. It's not like it's a hidden thing, It's such an important part of it. And I mean, as a prime example, I've been playing a new shooter this week. It's quite an older game, but I always sort of come back to it and think, oh yeah, I'd really enjoy this. And there's only like 6 maps on it, and I'm thinking, I just get bored of that really quickly because there's no new places to play the game. Whereas, you could add new characters in, i.e. cars, and yeah, like you say, there's more variation with what you can do with a certain track. And even the addition of Lake Louise, it's a very niche location. So it's not versatile to be able to race all of the cars in the game on it as well. You know, it's a very small corner of motorsport. It's great that there's a nod to it, don't get me wrong. It's a really, really strong addition. I love racing at it. I think it's a very big challenge. However, it's just not as substantial as a purpose-built race course like we'd know a lot of people would like to see.
Yeah, and I think that the Polyphony Digital needs to recognize that, you know, even though it's not officially a game as a service, people see it that way, and people are playing this game over the long term, and they are expecting this type of content to come out. So I'm really surprised that we are at this point, because I thought that I assumed, of course, you know what they say about assumptions, but I assumed that Gran Turismo 7 at this point in its development and just the way gaming is in general now, I assumed that there would be a much more steady and consistent drip feeding of substantial content. Yeah. And I think a lot of other people feel the same way. But that just hasn't really happened, and we'll probably never know exactly why.
Year 2 has seen, I mean, tracks aside, it's seen more or less on a par with Year 1 in terms of car content. And of course, we did get the big Spec 2 update in November. Although personally, I think the Year 1 update was bigger with the addition of PSVR 2 and with the original Sophie. But the Spec 2 update did add Sophie 2.0. It added the weekly challenges, which at the time of recording is on a bit of a break. I think they're coming back this Friday. And the event directory, which kind of freshened up the look of the game. And there's the extra payouts in arcade mode, which is always great because, you know, the game economy is still, you know, probably one of the easiest things to pick at. So that there has been, I think we got 35, 37 cars Year 1. I think we've had 32 over Year 2. But again, we've also had 3 months where there haven't been any. And that's, you know, I mean, Kazunori did say that the updates are not monthly by design, it's just how they happen to be. But there's kind of been this expectation that the last Thursday of a month we get a content update, and the 3 of those have gone by. And we do see a lot of grumbling in the community, understandably, from that.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, coming on to the latest update, 1.43, you know, another handful of cars again, variation-ish of cars, and obviously the access again to the Bulgari at last. Thank you.
Which is a terrific car to drive. It's just, you know, it was just people. We said last time out, Vision GT cars, very divisive. It's a terrific car to drive.
Yeah.
I love driving it. The way it looks is unique. I mean, that's
a polite word to use.
Watch screw dials, wheels, and it's got the watch dials, and it's got the kind of the rubberized roll hoop and the pop down headlights, and it's a cracking car to drive because it's not overpowered like the. I think people who drove the Genesis in the time trial were, you know, it's
terrified.
Speed 12e, but it's a great car to drive. Obviously, now we've got access to it, but again, it was, you know, buy a $5,000 watch for early access.
Yeah, I mean, I think I made the point last time that it was a cool idea to sort of give it some value, you know, because as I've said, you know, someone goes past in a Bugatti Chiron in a video game, you just don't blink an eyelid. You're like, is that the right phrase? You don't bat an eyelid, but. You know, if you see one in real life, you go, wow, like, look at that, because you know that someone's paid real money for that. And it added a bit of value to the car, but only temporarily. So we all knew we were going to get one anyway, so I don't think it added as much prestige as they would have hoped. Still a cool idea, great way to tie it in. Love that, because it breaks the fourth wall a bit. But I don't think it probably worked as well as they would have wanted. But, you know, it may not be that they wanted a certain thing out of it. You never know. But again, we didn't get any tracks in the update, and we were sort of hoping that may be a nod to the second anniversary, weren't we? That they were going to bring something big out for it. But as you've mentioned, Andrew, you know, Spec 2 has already been around the corner. They probably jammed most of the big stuff into that, didn't they?
I mean, there is an off chance that obviously with March being the anniversary month, we might see a track in the March update. But then again, we say that every month we might see a track. There's been one in 12 months. I mean, as far as the car content, I think people enjoyed seeing the Evo 9 a lot. I think a lot of people were very taken by the Renault 4. I mean, obviously, again, that's a kind of a divisive car because a lot of people want newer cars, they want newer race cars. I don't know, old. The origin of the European hatchback, which a lot of people have seen growing up in the 80s and 90s, just sitting in a field rotting. But I mean, loads of people have enjoyed seeing it, and I'm there. It's one of those old quirky cars that's always been the Gran Turismo thing, and it's the Evo 9 as well, and then the TT coming, the second gen TTS coming back to fill that TT shaped gap. So yeah, it's
got to be careful how you say that. I agree that the Renault's quirky, and that's what it's all about. There's a lot of charming cars in Gran Turismo, and it's a great idea to have them because you can have special events with them that are a bit of fun. I remember when I think there was a Samba Bus event that I did a daily races video on, and good lord, at the time it was painful, but you look back on it and you think, yeah, you know what, it was a fun little glimmer, and that's what it's all about. You've got to have fun with it. But it's been an interesting update, but again, not as substantial is definitely the word, isn't it, Jordan? Like, it's not as substantial as we're hoping for, I think.
No, and the community's getting restless, and I understand that. I think, and two, we've got to think about the. I'm really curious to see how the next 6 months to a year plays out, because we've not heard anything about the Gran Turismo World Series with the live events. And we've got possibly the PlayStation 5 Pro maybe coming out in the fall or early next year. So how are things going to work out with Gran Turismo from that perspective? Maybe they're waiting on releasing new tracks when the World Series starts. That would certainly get a lot more people to tune into the events. I know that's something that I've been telling them, and people have been saying in the forums, in our community for a long time now. You tie content releases into these World Series, and you're going to have a lot more people tuning in straight out of the box. So that's something, maybe they're listening to that advice and going to release more stuff later in the year. I don't know. We're in kind of a weird time right now, and there's the future isn't exactly clear. But I do think more things will be happening later in the year. What are they going to do with PlayStation 5 Pro?
Mm-hmm.
Gran Turismo has always been used as a showcase for new PlayStation technology, so it makes sense for something to come along there at that time. I mean, maybe Gran Turismo 8 is closer than anyone expects. I think that's I know it's a long shot, but it is. But you just never know. Whatever you think Polyphony is going to do, they generally don't do that. So,
that's very true.
Basically, take everything that I just said and then flip it upside down, and that's probably what's going to happen.
They do like to keep us guessing.
Yes.
That unpredictability is what we love. It's what we love. It's what's so charming about it, and it's what keeps us even busier, to be fair. But I'm not really enthralled by the latest update. But at the same time, it's easy to be ungrateful for it. I think is safe to say. It's easy to sort of forget how much work goes into each part of these updates and how often we get them as well. To be fair, we have been very consistently fed them, so we have to remain grateful for the fact they come around. And like you mentioned with the PS5 Pro, it could be a two-way street where not only could Gran Turismo be used as a showcase for it, but also could the added sort of capabilities of the later console do things for the game or open more opportunities up for the game that until we get there we couldn't have a clue what else they could do with it. It's definitely a two-way street like that, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's just what could they do? I mean, are we looking at 8K, or are we looking at we've already got that 120 hertz, but where do we go from here? And how could we really expect a game that supports the PlayStation 4 to then also support something special on the PS5 Pro? So it would technically be supporting 3 different pieces of hardware. I don't know, but we may not see anything. The PS5 Pro may come and there's, we get 3 new cars and a new Vision GT.
Renault
That's
5 instead of
probably the
Renault
more
4.
realistic expectation.
But it is. It's already a kind of a two-tier game in that you don't get PSVR 2 support on PS4, obviously, but you don't get to drive Sophie on PS4. So there's like
True.
both the first year and the almost first year update and the Spec 2 update had plenty for PS5 players, but not quite so much for PS4. If that's going to be the case with PS5 Pro, we're going to have a 3-grade system.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that's going to work. Maybe GT7 will morph into GT8 and PS4 will be dropped. I don't know.
It's certainly a way to divide a community, though, isn't it? If that's the
Yeah.
case, and you can bet your bottom dollar that they'll do everything to avoid that being the case. But you never know with how the market can be, whether they're sort of backed into a corner with having to do that. Because as we all know, the progression with hardware and modern tech is just terrifying. I built a gaming PC like 2 years ago, and now it's completely almost obsolete in comparison to what graphics cards and CPUs can do now. And when it comes down to consoles having such a sort of level playing field because they're all the same, well, not all the same, but you know what I mean. You can't have custom bits and whatever else. It's certainly, you have to be a lot more focused on the community and what they're going to get out of it, because they can't just go and change it to make it suit them a bit more, and or dial it back a bit even to sort of be able to backdate games, whatever else. So I think they'll do their best with trying to narrow down that market, but it's going to be difficult, definitely difficult, because of the time frame involved. In terms of technology as well, gents, I want to quickly move on to a video that we covered actually. Was it 2 weeks ago now? We covered the fantastic little release and talk of how Gran Turismo 7 gets its sound recorded. Yeah. It was a really, really cool piece. I loved covering that. It was a very, very interesting deep dive into it. And is it C-Deck and Kyushu? Because I wasn't even sure in the video if I said that right, but but it was great to see that, though, because it's like we said at the time, having that behind the scenes glimpse into how all that was captured. It's what we enjoy, isn't it? As everyone that's into this sort of stuff, you'll be, if you're into cars, then there's some technical interest, surely. So when you have all these microphones and bits of kit to get sounds and convert it, get it into the game and get it working, it's a beautiful thing. And as we were saying, as we were setting this call up, audio is a minefield, everybody. And honestly, it's great to see the ways they do it, isn't it? I'm in love with that. It was great.
Yeah, that was a great little piece of content, and I continue to be surprised that Polyphony allows a lot of their engineers to share a lot of this information and this content. It's sort of a major shift from the past, where everything was completely locked down in total secrecy, and there was never any acknowledgement in the efforts or technological feats that were required to actually produce this game. I think a lot of it, is trade secrets. A lot of it's maybe just the company culture at Polyphony. Yeah. They definitely hold their cards close to their chest, as pretty much anybody watching this is keenly aware of. So it's just so refreshing to see this type of thing. And I knew there would be a lot of vacuum cleaner jokes, which certainly did make their way into all of those comments. But I think it's good to show what they're actually doing, because it really exposes that side of the game development process to people who otherwise may not have really considered just how hard it actually is to make these sounds and make them sound somewhat accurate.
Well, especially with something like the synthesizer that we saw, and I've just bitten my tongue saying that because it's not a word I enjoy. But hearing the way that worked and seeing it visually as well, like running it in real time, that was just mind-blowing that it can work so well, because obviously, car sounds are a very constant thing once the car is in motion, and because of the pitch has to be spot on, but we've all seen it in the past in racing games, if you've got a file that's on too short a loop, it just drives you bonkers. I mean, the old Tucker 2 game back in the day, I think the car sound loop was like a second and a half long, and you hit the limiter at Thruxton, it's just going, it's doing my head in. But it's a real art form, isn't it, to get all that right, and to obviously match the accuracy of how the cars look and how beautiful the game is as well. They set a very high standard for themselves, don't they?
Yeah. Well, another thing that I'll add too, that I don't think they didn't really get into in that presentation, but just my impression from talking with people involved in the production of the game is that a lot of people don't consider just how hard it is to actually get access to some of these cars.
Yeah.
And the thing about the scanning team and the licensing teams and stuff, but they go and it's easy to get someone to allow you to photograph their car and laser scan it, because the car is just sitting there. They get inside, take some pictures of the interior, and you're done. To record the sound, you actually have to do a lot with the car physically. You've got to run it up, through its range of RPMs, and you're pushing the car, you're putting it on a dyno, you're putting it, through its paces, you're revving it up, you're pushing it by nature. So there's a lot more involved in capturing the sound, and people just assume that everyone would be thrilled if Polyphony Digital came calling and said, "Hey, can we record your whatever for the game?" I mean, everybody watching this would say, "Yeah, come on, like how soon can you be here?" But not everybody feels that way, especially people who have really special cars. They're going to be like, "Well, I'm going to be here next month, or I'm, the car's in the shop, or there's the reality of a lot of this stuff is very messy." And then where the sound recording teams, and they've got their equipment, and they have to schedule all this out and plan all this out and find people that are willing and actually follow through with allowing them to record the cars to the specifications that they want, that they need for the game. And that's something that people want more cars. We all want more cars, but there is a lot of real world barriers to these types of things, especially with the sound recording, that most people just don't consider.
No, absolutely. It's a lot of it's a logistical nightmare sometimes to, one, locate the thing, two, get into a position where you can record it in a decent enough environment to use the sound that you even get. They have to consider the locations that they use for it. We saw in a previous video as well, when we were looking at some of the cars from the Gran Turismo movie, a lot of the sounds and things were recorded in the, there was a horrible word you used, Andrew. It's an amazing
anechoic
word.
chamber.
Anechoic chamber. That took me about 9 takes on the voiceover to get that right. Don't apologize. It's better English than I could ever do. But seeing, the cars in a location like that, that's the perfect place to do it, because it's all beautifully set up for it. If you went to go and meet somebody that's got a special type of AC Cobra or something out in the States, and they meet you in a car park, and you're out in the open, there could be any sort of environmental noise to come with it. The surface you want to drive it on, even if you're recording anything to do with that. There's so many elements that can encroach into audio recording, as we've all found out before.
I mean, there's also a lot of the classic racers, particularly, they will have had multiple engine rebuilds. They won't be allowed above a certain revs. Some cars are completely inaccessible, and you have to kind of, I don't want to say fudge, but you have to use something that's representative rather than the real thing. Which is actually might be something that we saw in the video, because there's a nice little Ferrari 488 Challenge in there, which isn't in the game.
Yeah.
But it uses the exact same engine and exhaust setup as the F8 Tributo.
It does.
So it could be that that's been recorded for the F8 because they couldn't find an F8 owner, or they couldn't get an F8 to a location because they've got to drag it across the country or whichever country they're in. With some of the classic race cars, it's just not possible at all. I mean, imagine the Pebble Beach cars. Can we just take that up to the max revs in every gear on the dyno, please? No.
3 times.
It's absolutely fine. The sort of car where you've got like a cotton bud for every bit of dust that lands on it. Like you can't. It's like, don't touch the car, don't kick its head in. Like, that's just not how this rolls at all.
Yeah. But there's so much to it. There's so much to it, and the and it's people say, people have said for years, why don't they just go type in whatever the car is on YouTube and just use some in-car sample? And I know games have done that.
Andrew's response is the same as mine.
I mean, it's like, but even then you're going to have such an inconsistency between the recordings. And okay, so you do have a great recording from 2001 or 95 or whatever, and it sounds really good. You're going to put that sample in the game. It's going to sound totally different from all the cars that you did record in the anechoic chamber,
See,
you know, and it's going to sound totally different, and that's not really a practical option. There has to be some level of consistency.
Yeah, and it reminds me of, you know, like the modding community on something like Assetto Corsa, for example. You know, there'll be teams that do these amazing mods, and they are beautiful and really well done. There'll be people that just want the car in the game, and they just want it to be there. You know, they won't put a colossal amount of time into it. Fair enough, they do it, and they get it in there, and it works. But the quality difference from one developer to the next, you know, it's great that obviously something like Gran Turismo 7 is just one company and always has been, because you know that the standard they set for it, the methods that they use, will always keep it the same. They'll keep it on a level, and obviously we do get everything to a high standard. And again, something that's very easy to be ungrateful about is just how much time goes into it compared to just laser scanning it on the outside, like you said. The next topic, gentlemen, is rather far away from this, but Xbox have made an interesting move very recently, to say the least. I think we briefly covered it last time, I think, or we were going to, and I chatted too much rubbish.
The full scope of it wasn't yet known when we were doing the last recording.
Yes.
But it is kind of not really changing tack, but it also is. The Xbox has been on this thing for years that, you know, every screen can be an Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
But they've also been holding this, you know, you can only play certain things. But, you know, we have our exclusives that you can only play on Xbox. So it came as a bit of a surprise when all the rumours started swirling around that they were planning on bringing some of their exclusives to other platforms, including Switch and PlayStation. So, yeah, there was a bit of a rumour mill going on. They've subsequently kind of stepped in to clear it up a little bit. That they're bringing 4 titles that were previously Xbox exclusives to other platforms, to Switch and to PlayStation.
Yeah.
That none of them are Forza yet. We were half thinking, you know, maybe that we could, you know, it was previously there was no possibility. It's now not no possibility, but it's still a long shot. But you know, they're kind of going to be assessing this to see how well these 4 titles do, and possibly visiting more of their exclusives taken onto PlayStation in the future. And there is a possibility now that we could see a future Forza title on PlayStation, which is just a mind-blowing sentence.
Yeah, it's terrifying in a weird way. But at the end of the day, I think, you know, it's an interesting move, isn't it, Jordan? Because they have to be so careful with it at the same time. Because if you commit certain titles to it first, then, you know, if it doesn't go as well as planned, then, you know, you could have put more work into a certain title that doesn't do quite well on other platforms than, you know, what the community want. And that's the thing. It's always hard to judge that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And, you know, but I think, you know, I mean, Microsoft's a business. They are excellent at making money. one of the best companies to ever do it. So, you know, they want to sell games, and I think they see the market. They understand the market. They know it's not, you know, the year 2000 anymore. It's not the year 1995 anymore. It's 2024, and the way that these consoles can differentiate themselves is shrinking. It's basically, you know, basically gone at this point. You know, everybody's got these really powerful systems, and that's not really going to be the long-term future of the gaming industry. And I think Microsoft sees that, and they it may be we may look back and say this is a really shrewd move. I think the days of console wars and you know, platform exclusive titles, those, you know, 10 years from now, that may be something that seems kind of quaint and silly. I remember back in those days. I think there's probably a lot of I'm not a game developer, but there's probably a lot of technical accomplishments or I guess features, that make this possible, where you actually have these multi-platform game environments and games development environments that they can use to put together a game that can easily run on multiple platforms. And that's not something I think that used to really exist in a way that would allow you to create truly high quality AAA grade games. And so I think there's been a lot of work in that with the game engines. And I think, the higher ups at Microsoft are probably looking at that and they're saying, we're leaving money on the table here because the margins on the games. I mean, it's like, you can sell as many copies as you want. It doesn't cost anything to distribute them now. They don't even have to make the game discs or ship those out anymore. So, the more games you can sell, the more money you can make. And I think that's why we're starting to see this shift. And Microsoft is probably, it feels a little weird to us old school gamers, but I think one day we may look back and say, yeah, it's a shrewd move, and Microsoft may be wise to take the first step in this.
Yeah, I mean, especially, this is kind of, I'm taking over Chaz's job now. I'm leading into the next thing, but we've seen Microsoft after the acquisition of Activision Blizzard cutting 1,900 jobs. Sony's obviously followed suit with 900. I think it's 900 jobs lost, being announced across various arms of Sony Interactive Entertainment, including PlayStation Studios. So yeah.
It's like there's one thing going on one side of the fence, like there's a big party going on. They're like, yeah, stuff it. We'll throw titles at PlayStation, and like they're throwing stuff over the fence at them. And it's like Sony are on the other side of the fence losing their minds over it, and they've gone, because obviously it's not in direct reaction. That's not what I'm implying. But it's not like they've gone, oh, stuff it. We may as well just quit now. But
no games.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing across the industry where jobs are going.
Yeah. It's a horrible market to be in for that sort of thing.
But both Microsoft and Sony have been picking up studios left, right, and centre, and now they're kind of reaching the point where they're now shucking jobs. We've seen with the Sony's announcement, which I think was last week now. We've seen they closed the London studio, which it's the London studio's like world famous. I mean, they made The Getaway, one of my favourite games ever. I'm not going to do the impression because Chaz will have to censor me in the edit, but love that game.
Yeah,
Fire Sprite is losing jobs. They did lots of VR and VR2 stuff. We don't know how it's going to affect Japan at the moment. They have said that there will be some job losses in Japan. Employment laws in Japan make that an interesting proposition. Hopefully Polyphony Digital isn't affected, but they only have 2 studios in Japan, so they're going somewhere.
Well, that was it. I mean, when we had the announcement, it was a case of figuring out where it was going to affect them in general, but then obviously the resulting games and software that come from them, and how it was going to stagger timelines with releases on certain things, even with the PlayStation 5 Pro that we mentioned before. It could affect any element of the business, but until we know real specifics, we've all got to sort of speculate a bit and just figure out where it could come from. Obviously, there's not a lot we can do from where we sit. We've just got to see what happens. But it's just horrible to hear it because, with what we do, you get so invested in a developer and a company that put out this content for us. It's the reason we're here at the end of the day. And it's never a pleasant thing to hear. And obviously, we send our thoughts out to those that are part of the teams that lose their jobs, and it's horrible. And we obviously wish them all the best. But it's part of the climate for it, I suppose, at the moment, which is a massive shame.
Yeah, I mean, we know some of the people in the UK whose jobs are at risk. They're kind of operating in uncertainty at the moment, and don't really know what to say.
No, it's a tough one. It really is. Yeah, it just sucks. It absolutely sucks. It really does. And we just hope that obviously, however it works out the best for whoever it affects, and obviously send them the best. We'll move on very quickly before I link
something more positive.
Yes. Jordan has had his hands on some new kit. He's had a new wheel recently, haven't you, Jordan? With the Fanatec, is it the DD Pro? I wrote it down somewhere.
Extreme.
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 Yes. Very extreme.
Yes. Yes. So I've had that wheel for a while now. Been testing it out. Finally, there was a lot of drama sort of surrounding this wheel's release because they with the DD Plus. Hang on, there's an animal coming by.
That's the Fanatec have heard him.
Yeah.
They know he's lining it up to slate it now. Fanatec have sent a hit squad for him.
Yeah. So I've been testing this new Fanatec Gran Turismo DD Extreme wheel, and there's been a lot of drama around the wheelbase that this thing is based on, the DD Plus, because they had a lot of issues with the PlayStation licensing on that wheel, and a lot of people ordered it, and it was delayed, and there's a lot of drama, a lot of people trying to get clicks out of it on YouTube and stuff, and a lot of people canceled their orders, and I can understand that.
Yeah, we actually first got our hands on it at the World Final in Barcelona, and it has been, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, it is 4 months since we first, and they were saying, we were planning on announcing it now.
Mm.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is a great wheel. I think it's a great product. I cannot wait for the True Force implementation to come out and see how that compares to the Logitech version of that. And it's wait, did I misspeak? It's Full Force, right? And then there's True Force. I get them confused, but I think that's a really amazing feature with the Logitech wheel. I really love that in the Logitech wheel, and I like those higher frequency effects. It's something I talked about a little bit in the review. I think it's something that's going to be taken for granted in the future. We're going to expect all wheels to have that, but when you do have so much capability with these direct drive wheels, they're able to put these things out, and it feels amazing because you think that there's all these tiny motors in the wheel doing all these things to create these other effects, and there's actually not. It's all being produced through the direct drive unit. So I cannot wait to see how Polyphony actually implements that with an officially supported feature on an officially licensed wheel. I think that has potential to be really something great. And a lot of people don't like Gran Turismo 7's force feedback, and I understand why. I agree with a lot of those criticisms, especially when you play other titles, you really see how many details are missing and a lot of effects. And this is their chance to right a lot of those wrongs. And I can't wait to see where it goes next. But it feels like the wheel is still a little bit premature right now because the main game that it is designed for is not quite ready for it yet. So hopefully we see that soon.
Yeah, it's like the whole sort of electric car debacle, isn't it? Like they've made them all, they're all out there, but there's not the infrastructure to sort of pick it up. It needs now. It's almost like a 2-horse race where one part of the industry has sort of overtaken the other, and now it needs to catch up and hopefully surpass it. And that'll probably be something that goes on for a while, I think, because it's two very separate elements that somehow end up working together. But it certainly looks fantastic, and obviously go and watch the review if you haven't already. And Jordan put a lot of time and effort into that, and many swear words in our little group chat. But it was a fantastic review and an honest one, and that's what we'll always do here. We don't just sit here and kiss backsides over it and say, "Oh, it's amazing." We'll tell it how it is. And Jordan put a lot of effort into it, so go and watch that. But I was really impressed with how it looked, actually, because there's a lot of wheels that come to the market, and they've got this is a very black and white way of looking at it, but they've got very few buttons on them, and they're not busy designs. And sometimes people prefer a cleaner wheel, but it's still busy without looking too busy in certain ways. It's a really interesting looking wheel as well, isn't it? It certainly keeps your eyes interested in it.
Yeah, I think it looks very nice. I feel like I didn't really talk about the way it looks in the review because it's a completely subjective thing. And anytime I think a wheel looks good, there's always 10 people who are jumping in the comments to say it looks like a toy. And then if you say, well, I think the wheel looks like a toy, then there's 10 comments of people saying, well, I think it looks really nice. So it's not really something you can win on with wheel opinions.
I bet they're down there now, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're typing away. They're furious. at what I've said. So it looks nice. I think it looks because it doesn't have a lot of color. I think a lot of the wheels that do have a lot of color, that's where the toy comment comes in. But it looks fine. It operates fine. As I mentioned in the review, I was a little bit disappointed in the feel of the vegan leather, but I noticed in other people's reviews and in other people's comments in our forums who have taken delivery of the wheel already, it's not really something that they've spoken about very much. So I guess a lot of other people are happy with it. I do hope that it holds up over time because it feels a little bit thin to me, but it's miles better than the old DD Pro, the Gran Turismo DD Pro that it doesn't really replace it, but it's sort of the lower end wheel now, which I never liked that wheel at all. It just feels really kind of gross in your hands, that rubber material. I never liked it, but the wheelbase, is great and everything. It's a nice piece of kit, as you guys say on that side.
He's getting
it is a big step up in that regard.
And another new addition to the industry itself, actually, from KT Racing has come the sort of almost surprise announcement, Andrew, of the endurance motorsport series game.
Yeah, no, this one blew me away because it was on Naked Connect, and obviously we were all tuning in to look at the latest news on Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown, which still doesn't have a release date. And they threw this one at us. It's a endurance motorsport series. They didn't reveal an awful lot about it. It's just there was a Porsche 963, there was a Porsche 911 GT3R, and it was all static shots. And it's set to be an endurance racer with official vehicles and circuits and legendary tracks and hypercars, LMP2, and GT cars, which, I mean, to me, that sounds like it's a World Endurance Championship game.
Yeah.
Now, the license for that is somewhere else at the moment, but I don't really quite know what's going on with this one, and it's certainly interested me. And one of the big things is it's going to be simulating both the driving and the kind of the engineering part of it. I think the tagline is you win as a team, so that there'll be the whole strategic race planning element to it, and I don't really know what to expect, but I'm kind of psyched for it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with a sort of a reveal like they did. It keeps us all so intrigued and so excited about it, because I explained it to one of my friends. I was talking to him about it the other day, and he said it's like the motorsport or sim racing equivalent of this Pal World game that's come out that is so close to the copyright line of Pokemon. It is unbelievable. My son sits on the other desk and plays it constantly, and every time he shows me a new Pal or creature on it, I'm like, whoa, like, how did they get away with that? Like, someone somewhere has just crossed a line out on the copyright. It's unbelievable. But they've nailed it. And you know what? I'm really hoping that this game is very similar to that, because it adds a bit more competitiveness in the market. It's up against an official WEC title, and it seems that that's the angle they're going for. But they've added more, like, say, the management side of it and engineering side. It could be a fantastic competitor for that, and that's what it's all about, isn't it, Jordan? It's a competitive market, and to see people getting gutsy with something like that to take it on, I'm all for it.
I love to see it. I think it's really exciting and very promising, and the more the merrier. I think it's about time somebody really embrace endurance racing on a scale like this, and really do it right. It could be sort of a future cult classic. I hope so. I hope they execute well on it. They do have experience making games for a while now, so I'm optimistic. I'm really curious. I know this caught everybody by surprise, and could be good. Could be good. I think a lot of people are open to it. I think that it's starting out on the right foot with a lot of positive energy. So that's great to see.
Definitely, absolutely is, and it wraps up a pretty crazy busy month, actually, with a lot of great surprises, a lot of interesting reveals, all sorts going on, and it's been a very enjoyable one once again. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time, as always, and thank you everybody for watching. We'll try and do another one of these towards the end of March. I'm sure it'll come around very, very soon, and we still don't know what to expect from it. But from me, Jordan and Andrew, thanks very much for watching. We'll see you again very soon.